Mishra, who has joined us through Zoom link, and he would be talking about the role of government data and good governance as part of his welcome address. DP Mishra is a senior technical director, scientist at NIC, National Informatics Center. He heads the open data technology, the web technology, and cloud technology at NIC. His team has built and grown open government data platforms, especially data.gov.in, which now hosts more than 12,000 data catalogs, more than 5,29,000 resources, has integrated 1,33,000 plus data APIs, and has access to 486 chief data officers. So you can interact directly with 486 chief data officers here. And already there are more than 9.21 million downloads of data sets which have happened from this platform. His team would now be conceptualizing national data platform with us, it's a data lab, and they would be guiding us, helping us co-create the national data platform. I would hand it over to DP Mishra sir.
Yeah, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. It's my privilege to be on this call, and I'll just briefly tell you about the data and its importance and how it can help in our governance. At the outset, I would like to congratulate Assam government and Civic Data Lab for organizing the two-day stakeholders consultation in Assam. In this 21st century of digital transformation, we often hear phrases like data is the new oil, data is the new fuel, data is the oxygen. Of course, data holds immense untapped potential in it. Each of us, as well as governments, gathering huge amount of data in the form of document, image, video, social media posts, search queries, news, and so on. Undoubtedly, data has emerged as an important asset for the development of any country and is also a key driver for the digital economy. Data is the center stage in recent times and is a key discussion point of any deliberation, be it in government, industry, academia, or startups. Almost all sectors of the socio-economic development of our country is influenced by data. Data aspects as a backbone to any applications of artificial intelligence, machine learning components of any of the initiatives, be it government or private. You may be aware that these days new business models are also grown out of data. Wide range of government initiatives and schemes at the central as well as state level are today making extensive use of data and employing analytical tools to drive value out of data. It helps effective policy formulation, planning of new programs, schemes, as well as preparation of budgets. Data is the core of many flagship programs such as Swachh Bharat Mission, House for All, One Nation Ration Card, Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, fertilizer distribution, MNREGA, pension scheme, farmer subsidy, scholarship, Ujjwala, Jal Jeevan Mission, etc. And are making use of data analytics to identify right beneficiary, understand their socio-economic status, and use of technology solutions for timely dissemination of benefits. These are touching the lives of millions of citizens in India, thus ensuring rightful distribution of benefits, which is creating a huge positive impact in contributing the upliftment of the society. You all know that data has been extensively used during COVID-19 pandemic for contact tracing, prediction of hotspots, trend analysis, take appropriate measures to curb the spread of virus. Data was also used for management of hospitals and supply of essential medicines and essential goods to the citizen. The need of hour is to understand the significance of good quality data and employ it for the benefits of the society. In order to facilitate data sharing in Government of India has formulated National Data Sharing and Accessibility Policy during 2012. There are many types of data. You can, to name few: big data, structured data, unstructured, semi-structured, timestamp data, machine readable data, spatial data, open data, and geospatial data, something like that. The many of this type of data are available. NDSUP stress upon the data access can be open data access, which can be used, reused, redistributed by anyone, which can be possible if it is machine readable. Another form of access is restricted access. Data declared as restricted will only be accessible through and under authorization. If somebody authorizes you, then only someone can access this particular type of data. And registered access. Registered access means somebody can access the data if they are registered, and the registration process is through a defined process. You may be aware that there are five-star data is there. Normally people there is a concept of five-star data. One is open license. So anybody can use and reuse the data. That is actually in PDF forms. So readable form is a 2-star. That is readable by machine or human. So it is a PDF or Excel files. These are machine readable as well as human readable. Then open format. Open format means once the same PDF file will be there, Excel file will be there, and a CSV file, comma separated values will be there. So this is called 3-star data. And 4-star data is if the data is accessible through a universal resource identifier, that is URIs. So if a particular data, if you can directly hit using a URL or URI, that is called 4-star data. Then the linked data. If it is a linked data, that means the data pivot elements of one data set and other data set are connected and linked, then you can say this is a 5-star data. So it depends. As on date, currently we have achieved till 4-star data in data.gov.in. To maximize the data dissemination and consumption, all of us need to build data skills across the government departments, roll out training programs that are aligned with our open data goals, and expand the open data ecosystem, build capability at all level of the government officials, promote data literacy for all those who work directly or indirectly with data. So more state departments, agencies should be onboarded on open data platform, that is data.gov.in. So if a data culture, specifically open data culture across states are promoted, then only this can be achieved. I thank you, Civic Data Lab, for collaborating with state governments, and particularly from the Northeast, the Assam state, to come out with various type of open data. OGD is primarily for releasing, consuming open data in all forms. But data in other forms and from other agencies needs to be tapped. You may be aware that Indian private sector is also opening and generating so many data sets and analyzing crucial big data in hidden silos for various commercial purposes. There is an increasing need to create a national data platform for India, encouraging all stakeholders to share, publish, and reuse data without compromising on their individual business goals and policies, data rights, and other processes. So, national data platform will enable all stakeholders. The proposed platform would be an ecosystem of data marketplace, having components such as data exchange, analytics, developer sandbox, visualization engine, data tools, app and model development, and app and model catalog, modular and open metadata framework, and assuming multiple data sharing policies. The platform would also be enabled to publish directories of various existing data repositories available across India. And this can be discoverable using the state-of-the-art search and discovery mechanism that is going to come on the national data platform. This platform can also create opportunity for public-private partnership for significant benefits for business and citizens. It can be a key enabler to leverage into India's highest potential and achieve Atmanirbhar Bharat. We need support from all stakeholders and be a part of this greater chaos. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, VP Mishra sir. That was really insightful, and we would hope that some of the data sets which we would discuss in these 2 days, they could potentially come on national data platform, and new use cases, information ecosystems can emerge from that in coming months. So from VP Mishra sir, now we have Shri Abhishek Singh as well with us. He would be presenting his keynote address on the role of data sharing and reuse in shaping the digital India. Shri Abhishek Singh is CEO and President of National E-Governance Division, NeGD. He's also CEO Digital India Corporation. He has also taken charge of CEO MyGov. MyGov now hosts more than 2.28 crores of MyGov surveys and has received close to 11.76 lakh submissions, including pre-budget consultations from across states as well as for the union budget. In Assam itself, we have close to 59,000 members on MyGov platform. With that, I would like Mr. Abhishek Singh to take over and present his thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you, Gaurav, and it's indeed a pleasure listening to your presentation with regard to what you guys are doing for data and making data open and making data accessible, making data shareable in the state and government of Assam, as also the work that you are doing with other state governments. And I was indeed listening to the talk given by my colleague DP Mishra in detail, and how they are now trying to transform the open government data portal into a truly shareable and interoperable data platform. And happy to note that Civic Data Labs is also partnering with NIC in building that, and that is something that we require, and I am sure it will add a lot of value as we go ahead and make data-driven economy. So given that you have given me a topic and given that you have given me almost 30-minute slot, I thought in order to ensure that I'm focused and highlight the key points required, what I will do is that I will share a few slides to give a perspective on what we are trying to do for the data governance framework and how we'll be working closely with NIC and the data platform that NIC is building in order to ensure that we are able to make all data that's available with various government departments available for stakeholders, researchers, entrepreneurs, as also incubate a data-driven economy. So I don't know, do I have a data slide sharing mission? Yes, I can. Is my slide visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay, so role of data sharing and reuse in shaping digital India. That's what is the subject about which I will be speaking today. So, yeah. So as we know, our Honorable Prime Minister has given a vision of a data-driven economy, like how we are looking at making this decade as India's decade. And to do that, the two pillars on which we are trying to focus that, which was highlighted very clearly by Honorable Prime Minister when he addressed us at the anniversary of Digital India last year, where he mentioned the collective power of data and the demographic dividend that we have will result in tremendous opportunities that we have. To various other forums, he referred to data is the new oil and data is the new gold. But as we know, data, just like oil requires processing and oil requires cleaning and oil requires refining. Similarly, data is also something that we requires a lot of processing and a lot of refining in order to derive value from that. And then in other times you have said that data is information. In coming times, our history will look through and understood using data. We already seen some data infographics and how data explains a lot of things and makes things easier in the way we look at it. So value and importance of data, we all know that the volume of data that's being created today, not only in India, but across the world, is that the more and more adoption of public digital platforms, more and more digital transactions. We know that we are exceeding or more than $100 billion of digital payments itself every month. And then the platforms that we have built in the form of Aadhaar, in the form of other digital systems that we built in, is creating a lot of data within the government. And this is likely to grow exponentially in the days to come. The question is that how do we use it for improving public service delivery? When we are able to share such data across government systems, when we are able to share, say, data with regard to MNREGA beneficiaries with data that the health ministry has, or food and public distribution has, then at some level one will have to see that the beneficiaries which have been identified in one government system should also get the benefits that are due based on their eligibility by any other government systems. So sharing across silos, across verticals in the government can have a lot of transformating effect in improving public service delivery. It also enhances efficiency and innovation. This is very well known that when high quality public sector data is available, then it can be used for driving innovation, for creating public goods, for creating new economic opportunities. The entire artificial intelligence, the AI tools and all are based on getting access to the right data, based on which the right data models can be built up. And when we make this data that's available with the government available to entrepreneurs, they can innovatively use it and create systems that can help in building more efficient systems. Then the policy making and program evaluation, we have seen how data analysis during COVID-19 and data analysis with regard to where the cases are being found more has led to improving policy making and evaluation of programs that we do. Data has also the ability to create $1 trillion digital economy that we are trying to, and the industry and the entrepreneurs, they can, if they are able to access and use this data, they can really build systems that can help drive our economy in the days to come. The $1 trillion digital economy, when we pick it up, we see that just 6 sectors and how they can really create a lot of value using data that's available. When you look at agriculture, whether it's for crop cycle management or pest control or crop failure prediction, NASCOM estimates that it can itself create $65 billion of value. When we look at smart cities, with energy management, with pollution, with traffic management, waste management, and again, value of $55 plus can be created. Healthcare is very well known. The Ayushman Bharat Digital Health Mission is already being implemented, and the kind of value that will be created will be much more. NASCOM estimates it to be $25 billion, but I would feel this can be much more than what's being estimated now, because access to healthcare is something that's on priority. And once we have healthcare data available, once we are able to match parameters, once we are able to use it for epidemic prediction, or once we are able to use it for diagnosis of diseases like tuberculosis or breast cancer or diabetic retinopathy, there will be a lot of value that will be created in the field of healthcare. Manufacturing, we all know how data can help in predicting equipment failure, in inventory management, in forecasting product demand, and it can lead to real cost savings, as also optimizing performances, designing the right products, getting to do sentiment analysis with regard to what kind of products can be, people are liking. So a lot of data-driven decision making can help kickstart manufacturing in a big way. Financial services, we all know how it's enabling financial inclusion, how almost every bank today uses chatbots for interacting, for resolving commonly asked questions. It helps in detecting fraud, in risk predictions, in order to ensure that one is able to make the right financial decisions. There's a great impact of data and data science in financial services. Mobility logistics is also well known, how we can bring in efficiency in the way we run our industry, the way we run our logistics industry. So these are just 6 sectors. Every sector with a lot of benefits when it comes to having access to the right data and using them for creating value. So while the Honorable Prime Minister has given the vision, and there is recognized that data can create a lot of value in almost every sector, how do we do that? So it was felt that we do require a comprehensive data governance policy, which will help us in driving the growth, driving the vision that's already existing. The potential is there, vision is there. In order to make it happen, in order to ensure that all pieces of jigsaw fit together, we need to have the right policy frameworks in order to ensure that what we are talking is actually happens on the ground. And what we are also seeing is that various states are coming up and various sectors are coming up with their own data policies and data initiatives. Only 2-3 days back, I saw the Tamil Nadu government has come up with a data policy. Karnataka also has their open data policy. Telangana has, Sikkim has, Odisha has, Punjab has, and Assam also is working on something like that. So almost several states in India have come out with their open data policies and data sharing frameworks. But when we do something which requires data sharing across states and across geographies, then we do require some kind of uniformity with regard to the data standards and data standards, so that data in a particular sector, data in a particular stage can talk to the data in any other state or any other sector. So that's very, very important, for which we do need to have a comprehensive data governance policy, which we are trying to make. And what is the objective of the data governance policy that we made? It seeks to enhance access, quality, and use of non-personal data. Personal data, of course, will come under the purview of the data protection bill, which is currently being finalized by the Parliament of India, and this would be in line with the current and emerging technology trends. So when we look at where are we right now? We spoke about the national data. We have the National Data Sharing and Access Possible 2012, which has got almost all the basic ingredients that is required for having a good open data policy. It established the need for harnessing open data for transparency and accountability. It established principles for data sharing, which and data classification to open, restricted, registered, and negative list, which Mishra also mentioned about, like how we can classify data into various categories and have the right protocols for sharing of the data of a particular category. It also enabled setting of the open data portal, the data.gov.in, which has a lot of data sets, which has been published, a lot of high value data sets being published. Some of them are being used comprehensively, and there are some which requires further kind of curating, further enriching, in order to make that more useful and shareable. The NDSAP also set up the data cells in various departments for data management and sharing. But yes, later on it was assessed that they required a little bit more strengthening, and NDSAP also enabled pricing of data sets by ministries and departments. So while it led to identifying data as an asset class, and it led to creating a framework for realizing the potential of data. But then it was observed that there are certain challenges in the way NDSAP is being implemented. So when we look at, for example, the Open Government Data Portal, while a lot of work has been done, a lot of departments have contributed, a lot of data sets. We have more than 5 lakh plus data sets, more than 2,000 are classified as high value data sets. But what we did was that we tried to analyze some of these data sets in association with industry. And what we observed was that there are certain things that require strengthening. Of course, 10 years is a long time. And right now, the data governance platform that NIC is building seeks to address these challenges. So the challenges are very briefly inconsistent with the source data. Sometimes the alignment with the source data is not there. If it's not connected with APIs, sometimes the source data will be updated and the data on MyGov will not be updated. Then historical data sets in some departments, some states, we have found that some historical data sets are not available. Sometimes you come across blank files, then variation in data file format, integration issues with source website, latency. Sometimes there are latency in data update, the time taken to update the data on the data.gov portal, then accessibility issues. Then sometimes some data is missing. Sometimes some data sets are not there across geographies. Some data sets are not there across periods. Then indexing, cataloging, naming issues are there. And what I've also found that not all data sets have APIs, and only a few data sets have got visual access enabled with them. And then when we try to look into the journey map of a user, like when we first look at Open Government Data Portal, we get a lot of excited. This is just sentiment analysis with regard to what happens when we go through Open Government Data Portal. Yes, initially there is a lot of excitement. I didn't know about this. When I get to know, then I start evaluating it. Some data sets I find which are very useful. Sometimes search becomes challenging. Sometimes we got overwhelmed with the UI. Then sometimes we kind of say that government is doing this, there will be something which is there. But then later on, if we find that when we get deeper into it, sometimes it becomes very challenging to get a lot of value out of the data, open data portal that we have. And based on this feedback only, the data governance platform which is being built up, the Open Government Data 2, which is coming up, will have addressed a lot of these issues, and it will create a much better user experience. It will create much cleaner access to data sets which are there, and it will enable easier and smoother data sharing and data accessibility in the days to come. And then we look at the data policy landscape. We find that several states have come up with their data policies. And we examined the Karnataka policy, Punjab policy, Odisha, Sikkim, Telangana, and then of course Tamil Nadu has come very recently. And then ICMR has also a policy of data processing, and MOSPI, program implementation. And we try to see what are the topics which are being addressed by all these policies. So when we look at data privacy, data monetization, data security, data use and licensing, quality interoperability, data retention, policy governance, and enforceability, some of these policies are addressing all. Like Karnataka is kind of very comprehensive, but some policies are addressing some of the verticals and they are missing out on some. So what is needed is that how do we align it? How do we kind of create the basic minimum data governance framework required, which has protocols and policies with regard to handling all such issues. So that's the key objective that is being addressed by the data governance framework. And as I mentioned, another the challenges with NDSAP, the data sharing and access policy. Some of the other challenges, the institutional framework is not there. While the NDSAP was notified and it was said that the open government data portal will be created, but institutional framework for managing the entire data sharing framework was not institutionalized in the way it should have been. And then the non-compliance to metadata standards. If some departments or some states do not comply to the data standards or metadata standards modified by MeitY, what do we do? What are the protocols? How do you audit the data sets which are available on the national data portal? So this was there. Then there was also siloed data portal initiatives. Certain states, certain departments built up their own data repositories and data portals, and it would not talk to the other data portals that was there. Then, as I mentioned, the policy monitoring and enforcement of NDSAP could have been better, which is currently being addressed by the current policy that we have come up with. Then poor data discoverability and intergovernment data sharing. Very often the protocols of pricing, protocols of access, sharing of data sets, even though allowed by the policy, but how to go about that, or in other words, there was no data sharing toolkit which allowed intergovernment data sharing to be possible. Until date, we've come across with various states saying that we do not have access to the data which is being provided by the other states. So this is again a challenge which remains. Then data anonymization and privacy preservation tools are very important. How do we ensure that whatever data is shared is not come under the purview of the personal data? How do we kind of strip off data from the personal identifiable attributes? And how do we ensure that privacy preservation tools are made available? Then data management teams are not available. Then absence of licensing models for unlock. Many departments do not have dedicated data management teams. And then the licensing and pricing, the models were not notified and given as a sample that can be used. I'm sure with the new data platform and with the data governance policy frame coming in, this will be addressed. And key stakeholders struggled in getting the data that they wanted. So researchers or academicians or startups working on AI and all, they struggled in getting the data set that they were looking for. So the data governance policy, which has been put up for public consultations, it kind of addresses some of these issues and comes up with a policy, a very simple policy prescription, which would ensure that the entire potential of open data is realized in the true sense. So what it does is, first and foremost, it creates an institutional framework in the form of India Data Office to streamline and consolidate data access and sharing. Then identification of data sets, like framework for classification of data. While the NDSAP specified there will be categories of data like open by default or restricted access or on a negative list. But how do you how does the department classify your data sets? Like the chief data officers, how do they actually work on saying that which data set will be in which category? So that framework will be notified by the IDO. Then G2G government data sharing. That's also very important for delivering better services for federate. So that required creating identifiable and federated government inventories, which are data inventories, which are searchable. Then it would enable data discoverability, management, and use. And then it will also look into integrated data sets, like how do we connect data sets across departments. So there will be identifiers which will ensure that data sets can be connected. And this will only be at the non-personal data level. It will ensure that service delivery becomes more streamlined, becomes more integrated, and ensures that better citizens get access to better public services. Then integrated data portals, instead of having siloed data portals, how do we connect them? How do we promote API-based data sharing? How do we unlock value of non-personal data? That will the licensing frameworks, the pricing framework, and innovative and just licensing framework that will ensure fair data access and use. simulate data quality and metadata standards? How do we promote adoption, publishing, compliance to metadata and data standards? The tools for data normalization and privacy preservation, SOPs for implementing them, data retention policies, like how do we ensure that for how long data should be stored, how long data should be archived, how data should be archived, how data should be disposed. And it also focuses a lot on capacity and skill building, strengthening the data management units in various states and various government departments, and also the data sharing toolkit, which will encompass all of it and ensure the processes for data sharing. And the roadmap that we have visualized is like the policy has been put up for public consultations. We have got a lot of inputs which are being incorporated, and then finally the revised policy will be published. Then there will be a data conclave in which again stakeholders will be invited to give their inputs, and then the final policy will be notified, and then the implementation guidelines will come up, and then the India Data Office will be visualized, will be established. So this is where we are at the data governance framework and policy, which I wanted to share today.
Thanks a lot, Abhishek ji. This was really helpful. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay. Thanks, Mishra. So, Abhishek ji, we have received few questions from the audience, but I would start from some which we have got from here from the audience as well. Number one, how do we motivate young bureaucrats and government staff members to be much more comfortable and passionate about sharing their data sets, which they are custodians of, within the government agencies as well as across the government agencies, and publish it in public domain? How can we motivate them to share these data sets so that there is a wider citizen engagement? What are your thoughts on it? Maybe DP Mishra sir, you can go first. And then once Abhishek Singh ji is free, we can ask him.
Yeah, sir will better answer because I know we are struggling for the same thing. We need to motivate government officials to, because it is an additional job for them. So if what sir has said in his previous speech, and that if you see, they need to see that it is actually required, and it is not a optional thing, or it is not a thing that you if you wish so then you release. And some it is actually going very personal. One person, if he is thinking that it is good and he should do it, then he is doing. Once he is transferred or taken for other assignment, the next person comes. If he is not interested, then that discontinuity happens, which is what actually data.gov.in is struggling, because the data, complete data, and the some data is available, some data is not available. What sir was mentioning during his presentation, that you see is similar thing actually is happening. So there need to be there should be some framework and some mandatory thing that they should be releasing the data sets. And for to make them interested, you may be aware that on Digital India Awards there is a specific award named as Open Data Championship Award. So in that award, whoever is contributing their data sets in APIs on data.gov.in, they are selected as open data champions of that particular ministry. So this is how we have been doing, but sir will better give a talk on this.
Yeah. How... See, that is what, there are several things that are required. Number one, building capacities and building strengthening the data management units, because what happens is that in many states and many departments, the existing officers have been given additional charge of chief data officers, and they do not have a supporting team of data analysts and data scientists. So very often certain departments think that if I give this data, what if something goes wrong? So that because they do not have the time to address that. So strengthening the data management units is one part of it. Then a lot of skilling, a lot of capacity building with regard to how it can add value to what they are doing, how it can make things better, simpler. So once a department sees benefits coming out of it, then they will do that. And once they see that they are not only contributing data, they're not only publishing data on the open data portal, but they're also consuming data. So if the work improves by consuming data sets which are being published by someone else, then they will see greater value. So it will require nurturing the whole system over a period of time in order to get to a truly data sharing and data accessibility systems that we can build on.
Thanks, Abhishek ji. Thanks, Mishra sir. So another question which we have received is, what are some high-value data sets that can be opened up in the recent time? Maybe Mishra sir, you can go again first. What are some of the high-value data sets which we can prioritize and which we can target to open up maybe in upcoming months?
See, what do you mean by high-value data sets? It is very specific to the. There are some data sets which are high value for the consumers. There are some data sets which are high value for the publishers. So if the publishers think that it is high value for me, and they maybe they might be also thinking that I have spent a lot of money to get this particular data released, so it is high value for me. But the complete data set, a data set which is to be complete, can be termed as high value, and there are 5-6 parameters that that is actually defined by MIT that we should be treated that as a prime high value data sets. So any data set which is consumable for a longer period of time, the time series data and the current transactional data, those kind of data sets can be termed as high value data set, and which will be consumed by the artificial intelligence systems.
Right, sir. So just to paraphrase, so data sets which are complete, which are updated frequently, are high velocity in nature, and have multiple use cases, multiple stakeholders, interest vested in that data set. Those are the kind of data sets which we should prioritize. Similarly, Abhishek Singh, sir, if you want to add anything on what are the kind of high value data sets on a state level we can prioritize based on your understanding.
Yeah, see, ultimately, what DP said was is actually correct, and the high value data sets will keep on evolving, and depending on who is looking at a data set, one can ascribe value. So what we feel is that once the data office is set up, then for every sector, for every specific data set which a department or an entity has, there will be a separate set of evaluation metrics with regard to how many people are using it, how many people are wanting it, how many people are requesting it. So that kind of framework will be evolved ultimately. And then we'll have to see, can we come up with something like an RTE framework? Just in right to information, we say that any information that anybody is seeking will be provided in 30 days. So can we also think of doing something in data, like any data set which is available with a public entity, such data set will be provided in a fixed period of time, or reasons for not providing be given. So that's something that will be path breaking, that will be revolutionary. I'm not sure when we can do it, but yes, once we set up the policies, once we set up the mechanisms for sharing of data, once we set up the technology backbone for enabling such sharing of data, over a period of time, we should be able to evolve to come up to such a scenario, and then only the whole concept of high value data set will make much sense, because what might not be of value to me might be of value to someone else. So that understanding and that approach would be required for making true data sharing possible and feasible.
Thanks a lot, Abhishek sir. I will just check if there is any other question in the audience which you would like to ask our keynote speakers. There's one.
Hello. There's a question from Gino George. How can one make sure that the shared data is being used as intended?
Yeah, so one question from the audience has come in asking how can data publisher recommend some of the data use cases? The data custodian themselves can recommend some of the data use cases so that the data set uptake is as intended by the publishers. Is there a mechanism currently existing in the systems we have?
Data publishers to recommend data use cases.
Correct.
maybe, but what is the intent for that? Some examples can be given. Like, for example, if somebody is publishing, say soil health data across India, like which are the, what kind of soil is available at what part of India, or location of, say, some public infrastructure or telecom towers or something like that, or some mobility data, then there might be an intent for publishing that. Like, we are publishing that with an objective to get solutions in a particular field. Or for example, health is, suppose Ministry of Health is doing a project for building an AI tool for tuberculosis diagnosis. Then they can publish, say, tuberculosis samples, anonymized tuberculosis samples, and say that the intent for publishing this is to get a solution developed in this field. So in that case, the concerned domain owner, the data owner, can think of linking publishing a data set with an intended objective. It can be for an hackathon, it can be for an innovation challenge, it can be for getting a solution developed. So those could be the possible use cases that immediately comes to my mind.
Yeah, sir, the way you say it, DARPG, Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances, they released their CPG RAM's data on data.gov.in for getting trying to build some applications by the community. So in fact, they got a couple of very good AI models for their grievances to be expedited, and the number of days a grievance is resolved from 40 days to 10 days kind of thing. So that this was their problem statement, and accordingly they published the data sets, and they thrown a challenge to the community to build a application. And during the hackathons, that India hackathons that Education Department is doing, during that time, all departments, they used to release their problem statements. So if a user department has a problem statement and he has some data, they can publish the problem statement along with the data, so that the additional data from different sources, the user and the hackathon person or the developers, they can get those data and try to build a solution. I have just thrown up the earlier notification by the state government of Assam that they adopt the policy NDSAP during 2013 itself. But as of now, the data release scenario that needs to be, I think you can follow it up during your 2-day session, Gaurav.
Definitely. Thanks a lot, Abhishek sir and DP Mishra sir. I think this was really helpful, and we really appreciate your patience and time for enlightening the audience and sharing these valuable inputs with the audience, both virtually as well as for the stakeholders present here in person. I think everyone is finding this really helpful. And we hope to continue these discussions over the next 2 days, and we hope to share a detailed event report with both of you. I think that would help us pick up some of the insights from this and help us expand these kind of data dialogues in other geographies and for other sectors as well. So thanks again, DP Mishra ji. Thanks again, Abhishek, for taking our time for this. This was really helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sitanshu
from our open data team is there. You can grill him whatever is your state government team. They can grill him whatever they want to know more about data.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you.
I'm sure has some time to interact with the key stakeholders here.
Thank you. Bye. Carry on.